Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS working to help those without a permanent address get benefits including stimulus payments and tax credits. COVID tax tip 2021-72 May 21st, 2021. While the third round of economic impact payments continues to be made automatically to most people, the IRS can't issue a payment to eligible Americans when information about them isn't available in the tax agency's system. So we're on the third round of economic impact payments at this point in time. It should be basically automatic. The IRS should pick up the information, be able to send out the economic impact payments, but they can't do that for certain people that they've been trying to reach out to and continue to try to reach out to. So if you know anybody that hasn't received their economic impact payments, you can reach out to them. Generally, the idea would be that if they can file their 2020 tax return, that would generally give the information to the IRS necessary. The two reasons the IRS would not send out a payment is that they don't have the information to calculate the payment and or they don't have the information to send the payment to, either a mailing address or a banking account that they can send out the payment to. The remedy for that would be to file the 2020 tax return. Remember that the 2020 tax return will take care of economic impact payments 1 and 2 by calculating them actually on the return in the form of a recovery rebate credit, whereas the economic impact payment 3 will not be on the 2020 return as a calculation, but once the IRS has that information, they'll be able to use it as the prepayment focus for EIP3, EIP3 actually being tied to the 2021 tax return. So bottom line then is to file the 2020 tax return if possible. Note there are free file software still available to individuals, so you can't get access to the free file software, and it is available on the phone. So if you're working with someone and you don't have a computer but you got the phone, I wouldn't think it's very easy. I've never done a tax return on the phone, but if it's a fairly simple tax return, maybe you can get good at basically doing that and possibly help people to process their tax return using the free software and the phone if they haven't received an economic impact payment. Okay, so economic impact payments, also known as stimulus payments, are different from most other tax benefits. People don't need a permanent address, a bank account, or even a job to get these payments. Individuals may qualify for this money if they have a Social Security number and are not being supported by someone else who can claim them as a dependent. So if you're talking about someone even if they're not working, that they may still qualify. They would not qualify possibly if they're claimed as a dependent on someone else's return. If they are claimed as a dependent on someone else's return, round 1 and 2 of the economic impact payments, then there wouldn't be a benefit, you would think, for the most part, generally, to either the individual or to the person that claimed them as a dependent, unless they were a qualifying child, meaning under the age of 17. If, however, you're talking about EIP3, then if they're a dependent on someone else's return, if they're claimed as a dependent by someone else on the return, they need to file the tax return, and they might get a benefit for themselves and, of course, the dependents that would be on the tax return. The individual that is the dependent then wouldn't be getting the payment because they're being claimed as a dependent by somebody else. But on EIP3, the somebody else then, whoever claimed them as a dependent, would get the EIP for that situation. That's the general rule. So you might want to look in more detail on that, but that's my general recap there. So eligible people who haven't received these payments should file a 2020 tax return, even if they don't usually file. This will give the IRS information needed to send them a payment. Those experiencing homelessness may list the address of a friend, relative, or trusted service provider, such as a shelter, drop-in day center, or transitional housing program on their tax return. So basically they're saying you can file your tax return and put an address of a place that in essence you trust, and hopefully that'll be enough to send the check out. Or you could try to get some kind of banking account information. It may be possible that some banks issue or offer some type of free checking account for individuals, possibly simply to have some place to put the money, and that way you can be a little bit more sure that the money will be going to you, and it might be a little bit faster that way as well. Those who's missed either the first 2 payments can still get this money by filing a 2020 tax return and claiming the recovery rebate credit. So remember, the recovery rebate credit is covering EIP 1 and 2. So if someone didn't get EIP 1 and 2, you'll actually calculate it in the form of the recovery rebate credit on the tax return, which you can do with free tax software if your income is below a certain threshold. So filing a 2020 tax return is the only way eligible people can receive the money from the first and second payments now. So in other words, if they missed the economic impact payments for 1 and 2, the only way to remedy that at this point is filing the tax return for 2020. Most people can use the IRS free file, there's a link to that here, to provide very basic information. So that information, the free file software will take you to that third-party software, which will help you to fill out the tax return. Again, I think you can do it on a phone. So you could hopefully you could figure that out if that would be useful or helpful. There's even a special section on IRS.gov that can help claiming the 2020 recovery rebate credit if you aren't required to file a tax return. There's a link to that here. The credit will be included in the filer's tax refund. The IRS will send any third EIP amount they are eligible for separately after the return has been processed. Using the IRS free file to file a tax return and choosing direct deposit is the quickest and fastest way to get a refund. The American Rescue Plan expands EITC, Earned Income Tax Credit, and the Child Tax Credit benefits for 2021 tax year. Some people will be able to get advance payments of the Child Tax Credit. There's a link to that later this year. There's nothing those who qualify need to do at this point other than file a 2020 tax return. Options for those without a bank account. People who don't have a bank account should visit the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation website. There's a link to that here for details on opening an account online or use the FDIC's Bank Find. There's a link to that here, tool to locate the FDIC insured banks. So you might be able to set up the bank account. If you do, you can give the electronic information for the banking information as you file the tax return. That might be a little bit more secure if you don't really know where the check's going to go and you're sending it to an address. It'd be nice if you're moving around to have it go into an account if possible. So they also have the Bank On, American Bankers Association, Independent Community Bankers of America, National Credit Union Administration, have lists of banks and credit unions that can open an account online. There's also the Veterans, see the Veterans Benefit Banking Program. There's a link to that here for financial services at participating banks. Many reloadable prepaid cards or mobile payment apps also have an account and routing number that individuals can provide to the IRS to get their payments. So individuals experiencing homelessness can also receive the EITC. For people experiencing homelessness who have a job, filing a tax return often carries a bonus, getting a refund based on various tax benefits, especially the Earned Income Tax Credit. There's a link to the Earned Income Tax Credit here. That's for low and moderate income workers and working families. To get the credit, federal law requires that workers live in the U.S. for more than half of the year and meet other requirements. This means living in a home in any of the 50 states or the District of Columbia. Therefore, individuals experiencing homelessness, including those who stay at one or more homeless shelters, can meet that requirement. Because it's a refundable credit, those who qualify and claim the credit could pay less federal tax, no tax, or even get a refund. The amount varies depending on the worker's income, marital status, and other factors. So the Earned Income Tax Credit, the Child Tax Credit are two tax credits that are refundable tax credits, and therefore many people may be under the impression that if they file, they're not going to have any benefits, where in actuality, they may qualify for these credits, which don't just bring the income level to zero or the tax liability to zero. They actually are a refund program or benefit type of program. So it might be worth, if you haven't filed the tax return, someone who hasn't filed the tax return and they're saying, hey, look, my income's below a certain threshold, I don't need to file the tax return. You might then say, hey, look, the filing is free. You could use free software to take a look at it and just check it out and see if you qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit and or the Child Tax Credit, because those are not really taxes. They're a benefit program. They can actually bring the liability below zero. So even if you're not required to file, you might want to take a look at it, because it's free to look at, and it could be worth something. Every year, a lot of people kind of don't get the refunds or don't pick up some of the benefits that they qualify for, because many of them probably just say, hey, I'm below the need to file. I'm not going to go through the trouble of doing so, which is understandable. It is kind of burdensome to do. But again, if they were aware of some of the benefits there, they might still want to file. So probably worth taking a look at. So to find out if they're eligible, people can use the EITC assistance on irs.gov. That's specifically for the earned income tax credit. But again, there's access to free software, it seems to me. So it seems like you can actually fill out the software, and that would also tell you whether or not you would qualify for the credit as well. But you'd need more information to fill out an actual tax return. So if you just want like general information to see if you would qualify for the EITC, you can take a look at the link here. It's available in both English and Spanish. So there's links to that here. There'll be a link to this in the description.